the Gaming Committee to order. We've invited Commissioner Al Hopkins to come talk to us this morning regarding his reappointment by the governor for another term as chairman of the Gaming Commission. Mr. Hopkins, thank you for coming. We understand you were in town for commission business, and thank you for coming over here. We'll ask you to come to the podium. I know all the members had opportunity to review the mandatory background information provided by the peer committee. And at this time, I'll begin by asking you, Mr. Hopkins, to briefly explain what you've done on the commission and why you'd like another term and what you would like to do if you are confirmed. So we appreciate you coming, and we'd like to have you get us started this morning.
Well, I'm honored to be with you. I have, that would be short and sweet. I've been the chairman, and as you can see from our results, we are doing excellent in every area of the state of Mississippi today, and we're accomplishing those things that we need to with regard to each of the casinos. As far as I know, I'm very proud of that record. I'm proud of the fact that in each level of the casinos in Mississippi, we're outperforming anything we've ever done. I am concerned, since I'm here, about the need for additional agents. That is something that I think is extremely important for us today, because in the entire industry, they look to Mississippi as a leader in the casino industry, and I want to keep it that way. I believe I have as long as I've been chairman, and I promise you that I shall do that as long as I am chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Hopkins. I'll be happy to recognize any senator on the committee if they have any questions for Mr. Hopkins. If there are no questions from the members of the committee, Senator Delano, you're recognized.
Thank you, General. I appreciate you coming and talking with us today. I'm glad that you were in town. I know it's sometimes when we're doing reappointments, it's not necessary for you to come in, but I really do appreciate you coming in and speaking with us today. With respect to our gaming operations, especially on the coast, you are, as a commissioner, someone who sees and monitors the other regulatory agencies that are around the state of or around Mississippi and around the country, to try to make sure that we provide the best regulatory environment possible for our protection of our players, as well as the permit holders here in our state and for our jobs. That being said, we know that there's a lot of competition that we're starting to see from adjoining states providing various types of gaming activities. Is there anything that you see in our existing regulations or are in our code sections through the Gaming Control Act that may need to be modified, or at least something that we should have on our radar scope to help us be most competitive in this new environment? And I would just like to hear some of your comments on that, on what the competition has done for our regulatory environment.
We have always have discussions with regard to where we are with regard to regulations and how we're handling our affairs in the state of Mississippi. And I can tell you that my response has been that they don't know of no regulations that we need, we do not have, but we need additional agents. It's critically important for us to have the number of agents that are there to check everything for everybody involved, whether it's bingo or whether it's gaming. And we have, as a result of not having some over the years, we have many of them who have been there for a number of years who may retire. And when they retire, since they're all about the same age, we may be in a situation where we have a problem with regard to filling those positions. So how you do that is to have the number of people there on staff to fill those positions as it happens. And we can only do that if we have the money to do it. And so that's the important thing with regard to our regulatory activities, is to have that staff there and have it trained and ready, and that's what we need. So that's the important thing that I see that's critically important for us at this time.
Follow up, Mr. Chairman. General, since we've passed Sportsbook, the market is wild. It's changing wildly. It seems like there are new games that come out from time to time, or things that the public perceive as new games. And I know that's a maturing market here in what's really in our infancy, but we're constantly evolving and maturing. Are you hearing anything from operators that that we should know about, or that would be something that would be helpful for us to know with respect to Sportsbook and how to address that in the future?
Our executive director, of course, is dealing with them daily, and I have gotten nothing from him that is something that's important for us to take up. Seems to be working well.
Okay, great. And then lastly, last year, I believe it was last year, we had another commissioner come in that we had to advise and consent on. And I had a conversation with him regarding the sensitivity of our regulatory environment to the capital markets, and how our regulatory environment affects the capital that flows into our state or can affect it. We've been very successful over the last 30 years now in having an extremely solid and stable regulatory environment that has allowed for incredible investment, jobs that have been created throughout the entire state. We generated a lot of revenues for our tax base in the local areas, as well as here in Jackson, for us to be able to use in other areas. That being said, we're always wanting to maintain not just the level of play and I think of word I'm trying to think of here, but we want to have that great experience for people who come to Mississippi. So that means that we're going to have to find a way to bring new investment in the area. And I think that a stable regulatory environment will help us attract additional reinvestment into our market. Do you share that same outlook and share that same opinion, or is there anything that you think we could do to help attract more investment into the state, and or to maintain the jobs that we have all across the state, not just in the Gulf Coast area?
I think our reputation that I mentioned before is the important part of that. Just about any time, whether you're talking to someone in Las Vegas or somewhere else, with regard to where we stand in the country, we're very well recognized as the top of the heap. And because of that, it's like today, in our meeting today, we have people from all over the world that want to come to Mississippi. And I think it's because of the fact that we have the reputation of fairness, of regulations that work fairly with people, but also demand that they follow.
Well, thank you very much for your answers. I appreciate you coming. Again, thank you for coming up here today. Look forward to working with you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Senator Delano. Senator Chastanall, do you have a question?
Yes, if I may.
You're recognized.
Thank you very much. I was in Maine 2 or 3 years ago for a conference that dealt with education, but I also was talking with some of the people from Maine, and they said that when they developed their gaming program, that they actually looked to Mississippi for regulations. Were you involved with helping them with that, or is that prior to your being on the commission?
I think that was prior to me, but we have that all the time with regard to people asking us how we run things. And I've discussed that with the people in Las Vegas as well as Louisiana.
Well, I thought that gave real credibility to our commission. And the other thing, if I may just ask one more question. Of course, I don't have any of the river counties in my district, but tourism is the committee that I chair. And I've been real concerned that some of the casinos along the river feel as if they've been targeted unfairly, certainly by a neighboring state that said some bad things about us when our casinos had suffered damage from a flood. And I just wondered if the commission is doing anything to help address that perhaps to protect our stellar reputation that other states seem to have. Regardless do you have anything to say about perhaps the Tunica area and things that the commission are doing to help bolster their activity?
Not only that, but the other casinos along the river. And one of the things we've been doing in the last few months is to be sure and working with the casinos that they renovate those areas. Many of those casinos need renovation, and we're seeing that happens so that we have the kind of environment for the people to come from across the river to our casinos. Now, sometimes it helps if they come there and the casinos are beautifully accompanied, and as a result of it, we get business here. And we're seeing to that right now, and it's happening as I speak. They're working on it.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Any other members of the committee with questions for Mr. Hopkins? If not, I would like to ask a few questions. You and I had a long talk on Monday on the telephone. And my specific concerns are with regard to what constitutes a legal gaming site on the Gulf Coast. And in 2016, you proposed a change to the administrative rule 1.4 that was later withdrawn that would have changed the definition of a legal gaming site and would have allowed an upland owner within 800 feet of the mean high water line, regardless of whether or not that upland owner controlled the land either by owning the property or via lease from the gaming floor to the high water line. Do you think that the current rule that is in place, that has been in place since Katrina, would allow for a casino to be located without a lease and direct uninterrupted control from the gaming floor to the mean high water line?
First of all, I didn't do that. The commission did that. And if you're talking about when the rule was on the agenda, I did not call it up, if you read the minutes. So first of all, I did not myself do that, nor did I call it up as chairman. It was not put up for public review or comment. What would happen ultimately would be up for public comment for 25 days. And once you get those public comments, then you decide whether or not you will have a hearing with regard to it, and you hear both sides of it. It was never called up by me. It was taken off the agenda.
And I understand how the administrative procedure law works through the Secretary of State's office, but the rule was published and was available to the public and to interested parties to read. And I certainly don't dispute that it was not brought up for a vote at the commission and not filed with the Secretary of State's office. But a rule was drafted to make changes to the existing rule. And so my question is, do you support, well, let me back up. Do you believe that the current rule as it exists today would allow a legal gaming site to be located even if that site does not have legal control through ownership or lease from the gaming floor to the mean high water line.
It would not. And there again, there are many issues with regard to that. One is when you say the high water line, if you will go back and do some research, you will find that in one area, the high water line was the bulkhead. In another, it was where the water hit the sand. So there's really two issues there. But I've answered your question.
Well, I don't know that you have, and so I'll try to ask it again. And I understand the difference between the mean high water line of where the state boundary is from public trust tidelands and the difference between that and, say, the seawall, for example. And so
Wait a minute, I didn't understand the last thing you said.
I understand the difference between the mean high water line, which is where state ownership ends, and the seawall. But what I'm trying to determine is if you believe that the current rule that is in place would allow for a casino to be located across from the sand beach, for example, where the upland owner does not have control all the way from his or her property to the mean high water line.
I answered, I do not think so.
Do you think state law requires that a casino have uninterrupted control from its gaming floor to the mean high water line in order for the site to be a legal gaming site?
For it to be a legal gaming site, it has to have control of that to the mean high water line.
Uninterrupted control, and so the sand beach would prohibit that site from being a legal gaming site under current state law as you understand it.
That was the decision in RW, as I recall.
If you are confirmed for another term as chairman, would you support any effort to change the existing rule 1.4, which has been in place since Katrina?
I told you when you talked to me on the phone, and I tell you again, I'm in a quasi-judicial position. I make determination on facts and the law. And as long as I do that, I'm going to go through that process that's set up there. And I would have in the process that I told you before was there, but it didn't take place because only then, when I hear all of the facts, when I hear what the positions are and what the case is, then I am in a position at that time, under my oath, before my God, to base it on the law of the state of Mississippi and the facts that I hear. And I'm going to do that. I can't answer that hypothetically. And if I did, I would be unethical in my opinion. And I have for the last over about 47 years, been an AV rated attorney in the United States, meaning that I have the highest rating attorney can have in legal ability and the highest in honesty and integrity. And I'm not going to violate that, nor my oath to my God. That's how I'm going to make the decision. And I would have the last time if it had come to that.
I understand there may be times when you're in a quasi-judicial position, but as a member of the executive branch, the commission has a legal authority to promulgate rules and regulations. And two commissioners can change the rules and regulations that the commission may adopt. And those rules, specifically Rule 1.4, address where a casino may be located. And the state gaming industry has been very successful under multiple commissioners and multiple secretaries of state because we have had a stable, predictable regulatory environment. And 2 commissioners have the legal authority to change Rule 1.4. And so as a member of the executive branch and to promulgate rules. And so my question again is, if you are reconfirmed for another term as chairman, would you support any efforts to change the existing Rule 1.4 as it relates to gaming, legal gaming sites on the Gulf Coast?
I told you that what I would do under those circumstances is exactly what the rules say for me to do.
The commission writes the rules, Mr. Hopkins.
Beg your pardon?
The commission writes the rules.
No, I'm talking about with regard to handling the change of the rules, and that would be, they would go up for public comment. You would get the public comment. You would then have a hearing. You would hear all of the sides of the issue with regard to it and the facts, and then you would make a decision. I'm going to do it that way. That's the only way I can honestly do it.
I don't mean to be hard-headed about this, but before a rule is put up for comment, it is drafted by the commission itself, by 2 commissioners who proposed changing the rule. That's how this process originates. And so what I'm trying to determine is if you have any intention to engage in that process and change the rule and initiate the administrative procedures process.
Hypothetically, I can't answer that legally, but the situation is if you will go back and look at what happened, you will see that in both instances, I voted against doing that.
Does any other senator have any follow-up questions or questions for Mr. Hopkins? Senator Blackwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm just curious, and this goes back to March 16th of 17, but I think the usual and customary procedure is for you to get a recommendation from your executive director. And I believe in the RW case that did not occur. You did not, or you indicated you weren't going to ask for a recommendation. Can you explain that?
Yes, sir. Jerry St. Pay, who was chairman, did the same thing. And in that situation, I simply followed his procedure with regard to it. Now, the reason being you're dealing with, and the question boils down to the decision with regard to how you handle a site versus a individual. And the two are different under the law. At least my counsel tells me that, and I believe that's true. And so it was a situation of where if you do it that way, you would finally get a decision by the Supreme Court to say which one is correct. I don't know which one is correct or which one would be adopted by the Supreme Court. I've seen it both ways. I saw it by the chairman before me, and I've heard the argument on both sides of it. And I think it's a situation of where the Supreme Court ought to answer that question.
Any other senators with any other questions for Mr. Hopkins? All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Hopkins. We'll be in touch. We are adjourned.
It's a pleasure being with you. Thank you.